Arman had always been a dreamer. Even as a child, he would stare at the night sky for hours, imagining places he had never been and lives he had never lived. His small hometown, with its dusty streets and crumbling buildings, felt like a cage to him, and he knew from an early age that he wanted more than what everyone around him seemed content with. While his friends spoke of finding stable jobs or settling down early, Arman's thoughts were restless, always wandering, always chasing something bigger. But dreaming big had never been easy. His parents, hard-working and practical, didn't understand his ambitions. "Life isn't about chasing stars," his father would say, shaking his head after Arman spoke of moving to the city to study architecture. "It's about building something real, something that keeps the roof over your head." His mother, kind but cautious, would sigh and hope that one day he would realize the value of security. Still, Arman refused to settle. He believed that life was meant to be lived on the edge of possibility, not in the comfortable grey of routine. After finishing school, he left his small town with nothing but a suitcase, a notebook full of sketches, and a heart full of stubborn hope. The city he arrived in was overwhelming. Towering skyscrapers, endless traffic, and a constant hum of life he had never known. At first he felt small and insignificant, just another face in the crowd. But the spark inside him refused to be extinguished. He found a job at a small architecture firm, not because it was his dream, but because it was a starting point. His colleagues were polite, but indifferent, their own ambitions modest and restrained. They were content with steady paychecks and promotions that took years to arrive. Arman, however, spent every spare moment sketching buildings that didn't exist yet, imagining structures that defied gravity and convention. He stayed up late at night, fueled by coffee and stubborn passion, perfecting designs that others would call impractical, even impossible. It wasn't long before failure began to haunt him. Rejections piled up, applications for scholarships, competitions, and projects he had dreamed of leading. Each no felt like a weight pressing down on his chest, a reminder that the world was bigger, harsher, and far less forgiving than he had imagined. There were nights when he cried quietly on his apartment floor, thinking about how easier it would be to just give up, to accept a life of mediocrity like everyone else expected. But giving up was never Arman's style. Every rejection became a lesson, every failure a stepping stone. He started attending workshops, meeting mentors, and absorbing knowledge like a sponge. Slowly he built a reputation for his innovative designs. At first, only small projects came his way, a tiny coffee shop, a renovated apartment, but each one carried his signature daring spirit. People began to notice. One evening, an influential architect walked into one of his projects, and for the first time, Arman felt seen. "You have vision," the architect said, looking around the space. "Most people your age are designing boxes, but you're thinking in dreams. Don't stop chasing that." Those words stuck with Arman, becoming a mantra. He realized that chasing the impossible wasn't just about achieving great things. It was about refusing to accept anything less than what he knew he could give. Years passed, and with them came countless challenges. Money was always tight, and competition was ruthless. There were people who laughed at his ideas, investors who dismissed his designs as too risky, and colleagues who warned him that his ambitions were dangerous. But each obstacle only strengthened his resolve. Arman had learned that the path to greatness was never smooth, and that settling for comfort was the surest way to lose the fire inside. Eventually, his persistence paid off. He won a major international competition, a project that would transform the city's skyline. Standing at the construction site of what would become his most ambitious creation, Arman felt a rush of disbelief and triumph. He remembered the boy who had stared at the night sky, dreaming of impossible things, and he realized that nothing in life had been handed to him. He had earned every inch through courage, vision, and relentless determination. But even in the midst of success, Arman knew the chase was far from over. The world was full of possibilities, and for him, one achievement was never the end. Every new project, every new idea was another horizon to pursue, another impossible dream to chase. He had learned that life was less about reaching a destination and more about refusing to accept the ordinary, about daring to push boundaries even when the odds were stacked against him. One evening, as he walked through the city streets he had once navigated with wide-eyed wonder, Arman saw young artists, engineers and dreamers, some struggling, some weary. He paused beside a boy sitting on the curb, sketching furiously in a notebook, oblivious to the world around him. The boy reminded Arman of himself, and he crouched down to look at the sketches. "These are incredible," he said softly. The boy looked up, startled. "Really?" Arman smiled. "Really, keep dreaming, keep chasing. The impossible isn't as far as it seems, it's just waiting for someone brave enough to go after it." Walking away, Arman felt a quiet satisfaction. His journey had never been easy, and it never would be. But that was the point. Chasing the impossible wasn't about certainty. It was about courage, resilience, and an unwavering belief in the potential of dreams. In the end, Arman understood that refusing to settle was not just a choice. It was a way of life. It was the fire that kept him awake when others slept, the compass that guided him through doubt, and the light that illuminated paths where none seemed to exist. And though the world would continue to challenge him, he knew that as long as he dared to dream, he would always be moving forward, always chasing the impossible.